Hi, in this video we are going to talk about how to remove unwanted objects from some of your photos, and you'll learn some different tools and techniques in how to do that. So here is the document that you need open. To open that, please follow these instructions. So in Classroom, click on that image. So when you click on it, it should open up. At this point you could right click on it and hit Save Image As. When you do that, the resulting file that gets downloaded is smaller, so it gets compressed. What we want to do instead is hit these three buttons up here, or three little dots in the upper right hand corner, open a new window, and then when it opens in a new window, hit this little download button right there, and that's how you want to download it. If you do it the other way, when you open it up in Photoshop, it gets pixelated and you don't have as much control over the image and editing it because it doesn't have as many pixels in it, and there's just not as much information to work with. Okay, so go ahead and do that way. Okay, to start out with, we're going to work on this top photo. You can keep all of these photos together. They'll stay in one document, and that's exactly what we want. Right now I'm going to zoom in, so I'm going to hit Control plus on my keyboard to zoom in, and I'll press and hold the space bar and click and drag down with my mouse just to pan around in my document, and there we go. So I've zoomed in. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more, Command or Control plus on my keyboard to zoom in. Now I'm going to leave these people here, but I want to remove these people for whatever reason. Let's just say you're making some kind of photo and you want a little empty space right there. You want to remove these people from the photo. So the selection tool that we're going to use for this one is just the regular lasso tool. So I'm going to go ahead and make a selection around these people. I will give them a little bit of room around, whoops, my mouse got a little wacky there, but I'm going to give them a little bit of room. Just make sure that you include all parts of these people in your selection. Now I'm going to go to Edit, Fill. I'll leave all these options as they are. So content aware here, color adaptation is checked, blending mode is normal, opacity 100%, and I will hit OK, and then they disappear. So right now I'm going to hit Control D on my keyboard to deselect that, and it did a pretty decent job. So that group of people was removed pretty well. If I wanted to come in and maybe touch that up just a little bit, I could make another selection and do the same thing. So I could just repeat that process one more time and see how that works out. So like I said, Photoshop does a pretty good job of filling in the area that you want removed. Now let's just talk about making a selection real quick. So I'm going to undo what I just did. So now I'm back to where I was. I'll actually undo my selection. So let's say I made my selection and I missed part of this girl. Okay, keep in mind up here, we covered this stuff when we were talking about that selection tool worksheet, but up here in the options bar, when I have my selection tools selected, so it would be not just this lasso tool, but my other selection tools as well, I have these options here. So this option right here is to create a new selection. This one is to add to the selection. This one is to subtract from selection, and this one is intersect with selection. So right now I need to add to my selection because I missed part of her. So I'm going to choose this option right here, and now it will keep the selection I've already made, but I can add to it as well. So I'm just going to add the rest of this lady here, and then a little bit more around his head up there. If I wanted to remove part of that selection, I could come in and take out part of the selection. If I didn't want to remove this girl, for instance, I could remove her from the selection. I'm going to undo that, so Control Z on my keyboard to undo it. I just wanted to show you how that works. So again, Edit, Fill, Content Aware, etc., and good. So there they are. Again, if you wanted to, you could touch that up. So Edit, Fill, Content Aware, and so on and so on. You could do the same thing if I wanted to remove these little objects. I don't know if they're lights. I'm assuming they're probably lights in the walkway. I could do the same thing. So I'm going to deselect that, create a selection, do the same thing, Edit, Fill, Content Aware. So if you want something removed from your photo, that is a very good option right there. Okay. We are done with that top one. We're going to go ahead and pan down to the next one. So I'm pressing and holding the space bar, and I will click and drag around in my document. So now I'll be honest with you, this next one works for me sometimes, but not all the time. So it's not my favorite tool, but I just want to show it to you so that you are aware that that is an option. Okay, so the next tool that we're going to use is the Content Aware tool. So that is right in here. So it's nested in with the healing brush and the patch tool. Okay, it's these intersecting arrows. Okay, so I'm going to choose that. And now I'm going to make a selection around this vapor trail. And again, I'm going to give it a little bit of a margin around it. And now the mode up here in my options bar should be move. Structure you can set to 5 and color 7. It doesn't matter a whole lot for this one. Now all I'm going to do is click and drag this over, and depending on whether you have this little box checked here or not, you might have to hit the check mark or the enter key on your keyboard to accept those changes. And like I said, that's about what I expected right there. It does a good job sometimes, but it honestly doesn't do a great job all the time. So I could do that again, select it and move it over and see what happens. And it's not great, right? So I'll try again over and over and over. And like I said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So I will try it a couple more times. And of course, I could hit Control D on my keyboard to deselect it, maybe make a different selection, and maybe that will help. But the idea is to get rid of that vapor trail, and it's not doing a good job of getting rid of it. So go ahead, give that a try. Like I said, sometimes it works out really well for me and other times it doesn't, and I can't really figure out why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So go ahead, give that a shot and see what happens for you. So that time it worked a little bit better. I moved it to the left instead of the right. So I'm going to try one more time. I'll select the rest, move it over here. Maybe I'll move it a little bit farther. Okay, I give up. See how much of that vapor trail you can get rid of. I didn't get it all, but I could use one of my other tools and probably get rid of the rest of it. So like I said, I thought I'd show you that one, and we'll see if you have better luck with that one. Okay, moving down, we're actually going to use the same tool, but we're going to use it in a different way. So we are again using the Content Aware Move tool. This time up here in the options bar, instead of move, we want to choose extend. And we are going to leave 5 for the structure, and we'll bump up the color just a little bit to 8. Okay, so now I'm just going to select an area of this plant, so kind of one separate little stem or branch or whatever, and now I'm going to just click and drag that over, and now it fills it in. So what we're doing is filling in kind of bare areas of that plant with some extra leaves and stems. And that way we can make this plant look more full. What I would recommend you do is you check that little box right there. So now when I do that, I can move that over here, and instead of actually placing it in right away, when I release my mouse button, I can transform it around. So I can move that, rotate it. That way it might look a little bit more natural, and you can rotate it a little bit so that they're not all sort of matching up and they look super repetitive and similar. Okay, so you can go ahead and fill that in. You could also make a different selection, so I can select somewhere else over here, and I can copy that, hit my enter button, I'll bring it over here, maybe rotate it around, and repeat the process a couple of times. So I'll just fill in all of these empty areas with additional kind of parts of the plant. So I can do that with those. I could also do the same thing for rocks. So maybe I don't want this plant covering up all of these rocks. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D to deselect. Okay, so maybe I wanted to copy that rock or these little tiny flowers over here. It would work the same way for that. So I could fill in whatever part of the photo with kind of whatever object I want. As long as I have that object available somewhere, I could copy it into this photo and repeat it over and over and over. So that's kind of a handy little tool, and I like the way that one works a lot better using that option, using the extend option instead of the move option. It just seems to work a little bit more consistently. So there is that one. I'm going to go ahead and press the space bar and drag down. And now here is one of my favorite tools and probably one of the most easy ones to use. So I'm going to use my spot healing brush. This brush works very similarly to a paintbrush in that you can choose the size and hardness of it. So your options up here for the size and the hardness, go ahead and play with that. The size that you want is probably just a little bit bigger, maybe double the size of this power line here. I guess that's a little bit more than double the size, but somewhere around there, maybe a little bit smaller than that would be fine too. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to brush over that power line. I'm going to stamp it right there. So press and release with my mouse, just get a little bit more control over it. Again, over here, I'm going to do the same thing, sort of stamp it in. And now the rest of it, I will drag over with my mouse. My mouse is not being very smooth right now, but there we go. That power line is gone, and it does a decent job of filling in the area where it was. So if you want to, you can keep going with that, and you can take out some other unwanted objects. You could take out this power line down here. That goes from here all the way across there. You could take out this foliage down there. So go ahead and do that. The only part that you're required to do is that power line right there. So like I said, that one is one of my favorites. It kind of works pretty smoothly most of the time. And I think it works a little bit more consistently than some of the other ones. But that being said, of course, like look what just happened right there. So it doesn't always work perfectly, but like I said, it usually does a pretty good job. So go ahead and remove some things from that picture. Like I said, though, the power line is required, so go ahead and remove the power line. And now we're moving on down to this last one. So this is it's a banana slug, I guess is what it's called. It's a little bit gross if you ask me, but hey, I'm not here to judge, I suppose. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a selection around this banana slug using our patch tool. So notice I grab my patch tool from the same spot that we have been getting the other tools. So that spot healing brush and the content aware move tool are right in there. So choose the patch tool, make a selection using that patch tool. And now when I drag this around, I can choose what area I'm using to fill in where I have made my selection. So that looks pretty seamless right there to me. So now all I need to do is release my mouse button. Now the last thing I need to do is deselect. So Control D on your keyboard or select, and deselect would be an option if you had something selected. A couple of things I need to point out to you just in case you're running into troubles. If you are having troubles making a selection, it's a possibility that something else is already selected. So it's a good idea when you're moving in between these little photos is to hit Control D on your keyboard just to make sure that there is no selection made. The other thing you need to watch out for is that you're working on this background layer. So if you are working on a layer above this layer or below it or whatever, just make sure that you are working on the layer that contains the image. Because if somehow I had gotten a new blank layer in there and I tried to use the patch tool, then it wouldn't allow me to do that because I'm working on a blank layer and it's telling me that the selected area is empty, which it is on that layer. If I had been working on this layer, it wouldn't tell me that. So now I'll select this layer. So the background layer is my active layer, the one that has the image in it. Now I can make a selection and I can move that around. All right, I just wanted to point those things out to you. If you have any troubles, let me know. Good luck.